What's up, sports bettors? Matt Modi here with OddsJam, coming to you to talk about the WNBA playoffs. So the regular season ended yesterday. The playoffs start on Wednesday, August 17th. Pretty exciting stuff. There are 4 playoff series that we have. So the top 8 teams made the playoffs. The 1 seed is going to be the Las Vegas Aces going against the 8 seed Phoenix Mercury. The 2nd seed, Chicago Sky, going against the 7th seed, New York Liberty. 3rd seed, Connecticut Sun against the 6th seed, Dallas Wings. And then, which is probably going to end up being the best first round matchup because these two teams are so evenly matched. The 4th seeded Seattle Storm against the 5th seeded Washington Mystics. So pretty exciting stuff with the WNBA playoffs starting. So I'm just going to give a little bit of a WNBA betting preview for these 4 series. OddsJam actually has odds up for the first 4 games. So we got 2 on Wednesday and 2 on Thursday. Not every book has odds posted yet. And as we can see, the first 3 games are projected to be pretty decent blowouts, with the Liberty Sky and the Aces Mercury playing on the 17th on Wednesday. So I'm going to be highlighting those 2 in a little bit greater detail. But overall, just looking at the stats, the Sky and the Aces were tied with the best record in the WNBA. And then the Sun were only 1 win behind them. And then there's a little bit of a tier gap between the Storm and the Mystics, tied for the 4th best record. And then a huge gap between them and the Dallas Wings, who had the 6th best record. And one thing I like to use to look at kind of a high level way and of seeing how good a team is, and this is just WNBA.com. So anybody, let me zoom in a little bit. So anybody can look at these stats, is to just look at the advanced stats and then go to net rating. So basically, these advanced stats calculate your offensive rating, the higher the better. Calculate your defensive rating, the lower the better. You subtract the 2, gives you your total net rating, and you want to be the highest. So in terms of net rating, the Connecticut Sun, despite being the 3rd seed, actually have the best net rating in the entire WNBA. And then as we can see, there's a pretty clear top 5, which makes sense because when you look at the betting odds of all of the games, blowout, and then 2 evenly matched teams between the Mystics and the Storm. And then there's a pretty massive gap between the 5th seed in terms of net rating and then the 6th seed Dallas Wings, who are barely positive in terms of net rating. And then we have some teams like the Liberty and the Mercury, who are actually among closer to the worst teams in the WNBA than they are the top teams. So like they're tied at about 3.4, but closer again to the bottom, as we can see here. So I do think that this first round of the playoff series has potential to be blowout cities. So they're all, the first round is best of 3. So basically whoever wins 2 games is going to advance, and then the next ones are best of 5. So the way that the playoffs work is the first 2 games of the series are going to be home games for the top seed. So Vegas, Chicago, Connecticut, and Seattle will have home games for the first 2 games. And that's actually, especially for Seattle, a pretty big deal. So if we go to advanced stats, and you can segment it based on however you want, so we can look at only home. So basically, how do these teams perform at home? And we run it. The Seattle Storm go from having the 4th or 5th best net rating in the entire WNBA all the way up to 2nd. Now the Sun, unsurprisingly, have the best home net rating in the WNBA. So just another example of them, despite only being the 3rd seed, might possibly being the best team in the WNBA, but the Storm are right there. So them having the first 2 games at home against the Mystics is a pretty big deal. So then we want to segment this to away to see how the away teams perform, most notably the Mystics. A decent away team, the 4th, they still have a positive net rating, but you see there's a huge drop-off between the Storm at home and at away. And that's kind of what Seattle has become known for, is their home court advantage and across multiple sports. But the things that stick out to me is look how poor the Mercury go from a -3 net rating all the way to a -9.5. So they really struggle on the road. They're a better home team. You just wonder if they're even going to get a chance to play at home going against the Las Vegas Aces. So to start on that game, because it's the 1 seed, I have the odds up here. Really no play on the money line. If you want to get the Aces at -1200 as some sort of bankroll builder, you can. The more interesting thing is the point spread, which is alarmingly high in favor of the aces, 13.5 or 14, depending on where you look. If you do get it at 13.5, it's a little bit heavier juiced. So there's not a ton of value here on the aces spread. I think it's pretty accurately priced around 13.5 or 14. So there are no odds yet for the first half. So I don't have an official bet yet for this game. Once odds are posted for the first half, that is what I want to look at. The total points, again, not a ton of value. If you wanted to get the typical line on the over 167.5, because that's really where the only value is, you can. But again, I'm going to wait on that. But overall, if I had to give a prediction, I would say the aces cover this game, and I think they win 2-0. I think they sweep the Mercury in the first round. I think the Mercury just don't have enough. The next game, the Chicago Sky versus the New York Liberty. So the Liberty are another team that doesn't perform as well on the road as they do at home. What I will say, so if we run this, if we just look at net rating, the Liberty are -3 among they're closer to the end. They're at the 8th best net rating. But one thing that I found interesting about the Liberty is that they've played much better. So this is just on the season as a whole. They've played better recently. So if we just want to highlight this from July 1st on, just look at the last month and a half, their net rating goes to a little more reasonable, not as bad, -1.4 from -3. If we just look at, the last month, July 15th to now, they actually have a positive net rating, 2.7. The problem with the Liberty is that they're a little bit inconsistent. They'll have really good games, and then they'll have really bad games. Game 1 against the Chicago Sky, again, pretty massive underdogs here. I don't see any value on the money line. If you wanted to take the Sky at -300, because that does seem to be a little bit of value, but such horrible juice on that one. What I did find interesting is that there is some pretty good value if you get the Liberty spread at 7.5. Both books, Caesars and BetOnline, which is a sharp offshore book, has this at 7. We can get it at a little bit higher at 7.5. I don't think that this is necessarily a McSlam or something that you want to load, but if you did want to dive in on the Liberty plus 7.5, I do think there is some value there. But where my official play is in this game is I actually really like the under. There's a lot more value on the under on this one. As we can see, two books, Tipico and again, BetOnline, price this total at 163.5. Caesars prices it at 164, but we can get the under at 164.5 at -112 on FanDuel. So I think that this is going to be a situation where FanDuel has this total mispriced, and I think it's going to end up lower than this amount. So I do think that we are beating the closing line if we can lock in FanDuel FanDuel under 164 -112. So I'm just going to put just a half unit on this one, nothing crazy, but I do think that there is some value there. And then in terms of the last two games, there's even less books have posted their odds for this one. To give predictions, I do think that the Sky and Liberty does go 3 games. I do think that the Liberty are able to steal one. I think that despite being the 7th seed, they've played better recently, and because of how inconsistent they are, they can steal one of these games against Chicago. I do think that the Sun win this 2-0, and I also think Seattle does go to 3. Even though Seattle is such a better home team, I do think that because these teams are so evenly matched, the Mystics will be able to steal one, and this will end up going to a third game. What I do find interesting is that the third game will be played. So the do or die game will be played on the away team's home court, which I find interesting. So there could be some value there if you are able to steal one. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Mystics actually end up winning this one. If they steal a game in Seattle and then win a game at home, I wouldn't be surprised. But overall, if we're just looking at the futures odds for the WNBA, unsurprisingly, the Aces in the Sky have the best chances to win the WNBA title. I actually think the Sun are a little bit undervalued. Having the best net rating, being the best home and away team in terms of net rating, I do think there is some value. So I actually like just putting a little bit like a quarter unit on the Sun money line at $25. And then, of course, my favorite prediction is the Aces. I'll put a half unit on them to win the WNBA title. I think they have the best coach in Becky Hammond. They have an absolutely stacked roster. So I do like the Vegas Aces to win. But I do think the Sun are a little bit undervalued. So I'll put a future on both of them. But overall, in terms of the WNBA playoffs, the first 2 games being played on Wednesday, official bet was the under in the Sky versus Liberty game. unofficial plays that I'm going to wait for the odds to shake out a little bit. I do like the Liberty to cover, but I want to see if the line changes in more favor of them. And I do like the aces to cover as well. The spread is just bet up so high. I'm going to see what I can get on the first half spread. But that's going to be it, my WNBA betting preview. So let me know what you guys thought. Would appreciate a like, comment, and subscribe to the OddsJam YouTube channel. And that's all I got. So appreciate you guys watching, and have a good one.